Welcome everybody to our Topic Tuesday webinar. We're excited that you're joining us today to hear about lessons learned in implementing a college and career readiness class for the students that you may be serving currently or are looking to serve in this upcoming year. So thanks for joining us today. As we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping around the space. If you're new and joining our webinars, we are in webinar mode. We cannot see or hear you, but we still want to interact with you. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see some controls that we want to highlight for you all. So you can see there's a chat feature. This is how you can communicate with the panelists. The raise your hand feature is if you have a question and you would like to be called upon. But most importantly, the Q&A feature that you see at the bottom is where we'll be collecting questions for our panelists today around the space of the College and Career Readiness course. So feel free to drop at any point throughout the presentation whatever questions you have, and we'll be monitoring the Q&A. So we wanted to start out with a poll question. So I'll be launching, we have 2 poll questions. I'm going to launch those. So you'll see them on your screen. The first question is, did your school offer the College and Career Readiness course for the current 2021 school year? Yes or no? And then which grades participated in your College and Career Readiness course this past year? If you offered it. If not, you can indicate that. So we'll give you a few minutes to put those answers in. So if you're just joining us, there's a poll that's live that kind of gives us an indicator of who all we have in the audience and what range of experiences are coming to us. We want this to be a little bit of an informal discussion. This is going to be more of a panel discussion. And so we hope you find this useful in your school, whatever role you're joining us in. All right, we're going to have about 10 more seconds. If you just joined us, there's a poll asking kind of some questions of your familiarity of implementing a college and career readiness class for your students, if you have it this year, and if you, what grades that you offered it for. All right, give everybody about 10 more seconds and then we'll close the poll and look at those results. I think almost everybody has voted. All right, so I'm going to end the poll and I will share those results. So it looks like about 80% of the participants joining us today have offered the College and Career Readiness course this academic year. And then those that have offered it, it looks like the majority did a combination of grades. Some were just predominantly 11, some were predominantly 12. And then of course, some have not offered the course this school year. So we've got a wide variety of experience coming to us today. So I know our panelists will hopefully share insight to all of the levels of experience with college and career readiness. So Shannon, I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Shannon Grimsley, Director of State Outreach for the Woodward Hines Education Foundation and the Get to College program. We are recording today's session and we'll send a link to anyone who is registered. For those watching the recording, today's date is April 20th, 2021, and the material in this webinar is current through the 2021 school year. In today's session, Lessons Learned from Implementing College and Career Readiness course, you will hear from a panel of educators who have been teaching and implementing curriculum for the College and Career Readiness course. But before we get started, I would like to share a little background on Get to College and a few logistics about the webinar. Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 3 centers in Mississippi, one in Jackson, Ocean Springs, and South Haven. And we help parents, students, and high school counselors with all aspects of college planning and financial aid. And all of our services are completely free. In our centers, we offer personalized college counseling appointments where we can tell students when to apply for admission and scholarship, help them fill out their FAFSA, or advise on essay writing and interviewing. For the spring semester, the remainder of the spring semester, We are offering all of our services in a virtual manner, and this will include the counselor webinar series and professional development opportunities of which you're a part of today, student and parent workshops, remote FAFSA completion, and two-way text messaging. So as Kirsten said earlier, during the webinar, we cannot see or hear you, but we ask that you ask questions at any time through the chat or through the Q&A. So here's our agenda for the day. We will hear from our presenters, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And then we'll talk about any upcoming webinars or professional development opportunities, and then of course, give you our contact information. So Kirsten and I will be moderating today, and Kirsten will be answering the questions on the back end and replying to the Q&A, and I'll be moderating the panel. We will have, as I said, time for live Q&A through the chat at the end, but feel free to message questions at any point during the presentation. So now, in the spirit of having a panel, we are going to turn it over to our panelists. I'm going to stop share of this really quickly. And we're going to turn it over to our panelists, and we're going to let them introduce themselves first. And then I've got a series of questions that we will ask of them, and we will be anxiously awaiting to hear their answers. So Heather, we'll start with you. If you'll go ahead and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Thank you for letting me be a part today. My name is Heather Morrison. I serve as the Director of P20 Partnerships for the Institutions of Higher Learning. I'm actually placed at IHL by MDE. I serve as a liaison from K-12 to higher ed and higher ed to K-12. I also work closely with the community colleges, but my entire background is K-12. I was a high school teacher, a high school administrator, and a curriculum director prior to this position. And part of my position has required me to lead the effort to implement the college and career readiness classes within our high schools for the past, Shannon, what are we on, like 4 years now almost? So we've been working on this initiative. As you know, it's required for graduation next year, and we will get into those topics shortly.
Okay, Christy.
Okay, I'm Christy Jordan. I'm currently teaching college and career readiness at Lafayette High School. I've been teaching, I guess, going on 19 years, and I've taught just a variety of classes, and I'm really excited about this course, and I've really had a good time teaching it this year, and I look forward to teaching it again next year.
All right, well, we will go ahead and get started, Heather and Christy. So Heather, I'm going to start with you. There's a lot of questions about how schools can implement the college and career readiness course. Can you give us more details about the requirements, how it can be implemented, and what grades are required to take that course?
Yes. So as I stated earlier, this is a new class required for the graduates of 2022. We started, it's the current junior. So when they were coming from the 8th grade into high school, they, as you know, they can earn endorsements now. There's the distinguished endorsement, the academic endorsement, CTE endorsement, and so forth. But this class was added as a core class within the 24 core credits. We piloted with several different schools because we didn't want this to be, so to speak, a burden, but to work what works best with your kids, what works best with your district. So there's a variety of options. You could teach it solely to your senior class as one Carnegie Unit. You could teach it solely to your junior class as one Carnegie Unit. But we also worked with some school districts that saw a need to break up into semesters so that they worked with, for example, Madison County offers a portion of it in the freshman year where they really have a deep dive into the career aspects. So the kids are looking at what careers and so forth that they wanted to go into. And then they pick back up either their junior, the remaining semester, the junior or senior year with the final portion of the class where they have divided out what is meaningful to a junior or senior out of the class. So you have the option of breaking it up into semesters. Some schools are looking at an option of one semester in the junior year and then picking up with the final semester in the fall year. I find that pretty intriguing. I think if I was still back at a high school, that might have worked best for my students where I was located. We also had, this is kind of unique, Gulfport High School has piloted what we call a 1/4 Carnegie Unit, where they did some each year of high school. So they started with a freshman. Think of it kind of like an advisory period. So they did a little bit the freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. As of now, Gulfport's the only one I know that really is sticking with that. We've had some interest from other districts that are looking at that option. But we have all of those options listed on the MDE College and Career Readiness tab. And I'm going to post what I just said in the chat so that you're able to see what I just spoke about.
All right, thanks, Heather. Christy, I'm going to throw this next question to you. Tell us which grades that you teach the CCR course to and how your administration decided which grades to offer.
So my CCR course is mainly taught to juniors, my face-to-face students. I do have a virtual class that is probably about 50% juniors, 50% seniors. And then I have some students in my face-to-face class that are graduating early. And so either they started the school year as a senior, or throughout the school year, they have made that choice to graduate early and they've remained in the class. But mainly to juniors. So I definitely could see where it would be an advantage if your district was open to the option of teaching for a semester to juniors and then teaching another semester to seniors, because there's so much that could benefit those students in that order. But if you're a large school and you don't have, a lot of teacher units to devote to CCR, then it might not be the best fit. As far as our administration and how they made the choice to teach to juniors or seniors, I wasn't in on that. So I was just happy to be the one teaching the class.
All right. So back to you, Heather. Is there an endorsement for this course?
There is not a separate endorsement to teach the class. Teachers only have to have a 7 through 12 valid license for that. The reasoning behind it is, Christy, let me ask you, what did you teach before this class?
Everything.
Okay.
I've pretty much been in career tech. So I taught co-op, and then when it transitioned to career pathway experience, and then I've taught teacher academy, ACT prep, personal finance.
Okay. So, so she's a great candidate for the class. And so we didn't want to limit the endorsement to tie it to a certain content area, or just make it a separate endorsement, because sometimes, as we know, as educators, those endorsements can be an additional burden for that. Not to say that we do not highly encourage training and the opportunities that Get to College and MDE provide for training for this class. And we'll talk about professional development opportunities later on in the conversation. But as currently, there is not an endorsement required to teach the class.
All right, Christy, what have you found to be a key resource or place for helping find resources to teach this course?
So, I did mention before that I have a history and kind of my teaching experience previously with the types of content that's covered in this curriculum. So for me, it would have been a little bit different. But if I were a new teacher and somebody said, "Hey, congratulations, you're the new CCR teacher," and I kind of had the deer in headlights look, the first place I would go would be to join in on those monthly chats that the College and Career Readiness teachers have. We have those every month. And it's just a good resource to kind of say, "Hey, am I doing this right?" Or "Who can help me with this?" My next place that I would go would be to Teresa's Canvas course. If you're not in that Canvas course, you need to reach out to these ladies here and get added to that. Teresa has done a fabulous job of just pretty much being an open classroom. And if you were looking for a certain resource for a topic, you could go there and start there first. Or if you were a new teacher or you were new to this content, you could definitely follow her plan until you felt more comfortable branching out on your own.
So can I expand on that one? So Teresa Connor is she's a CCR teacher and a work-based learning teacher at Northwest Rankin High School. And I worked with Teresa. She graciously offered her entire Canvas class for any CCR teacher. And so we run the class through the community college Canvas system. If you would like to join that class, all you have to do is send me your email address and I will add you as a student. And as Christy was saying, you can even if you don't have Canvas in your district, you can download any document from the Canvas course. You can create Google Classroom, and it's all right there. And Teresa updates it weekly, daily. It's a live class. She makes changes. She makes the changes in the Canvas class. So it's not something it's just sitting there. It's updated continuously throughout the year. So feel free, if you'd like to, you could put it in the chat, or we can make a list later. I'm sure Kirsten will help me get the names to add to the CCR class.
And I will add, so we're not a Canvas school. So for me, I had to build a Google Classroom. And at first, when there were some things that I like to use from Teresa, it was very easy to just download that and transition it to the Google Classroom. So for anybody that's really new to Canvas or Google Classroom, don't think that just because hers is in Canvas, you can't use it. Because you could even print the material off and make copies if you had to for that way.
All right, well, this kind of leads right into the next question. Heather, what training opportunities can teachers be looking for in the future for the CCR course?
Well, I'm excited to say, I know that Kirsten has been working on some training. I don't know if she wants to pop in, but while we're waiting on her to say something, do you want to share what y'all are doing with Get to College, and then I'll follow up?
Absolutely. So Get to College is super excited to support the space of college and career readiness. Like Christy mentioned, we've created these informal CCR teacher chats as a supplement for you as a teacher to be able to have a space, like Christy said, to come and ask questions. And kind of some of the planning team for this course is always there. So a Get to College representative is usually there, an MDE representative is usually there, and then some practitioners with some experience in teaching this in the field are usually there. And then we have a representative from Mississippi Council for Economic Education that's usually there, that talks about some of the units that deal with personal finance and financial literacy. And so it's a really informal space. They're usually 45 minutes. That just allows you to come and be like, wait, how did y'all do this? And not just in the space of COVID, which was a really interesting twist on all of this course, particularly things like the community service and things like that. But it also created like almost like a cohort support space for other teachers. And it's part of the reason that I asked Christy to come join today, because of her, insight that she was able to share in this group. We also have some individual trainings that we encourage you to participate in that are general to the public but applicable in the college and career readiness class. So of course, Get to College does FAFSA training. We do ACT instructor training. Although those aren't required in the class, they're also a nice supplement to particularly the financial aid, and then the admissions piece, which has to do with heavily, we know from past webinars, ACT is a key piece in financial aid and in admissions. But we're also working on College Academy. This is a self-paced e-learning, really large kind of scale, everything you need to know for units 3 and 4 for the CCR and how to knowledgeably talk about them. Things have probably changed since you were in college. I know they've changed since I was in college. And so they've changed, since January of this year, just with ACT and how they're handling super scores, how they're not handling super scores, things like that. It's going to be an opportunity for you to have really great resources and a knowledge place. If you're assigned, like Christy said, to this course and you're like, oh, surprise, great, where do I start? One of those is we wanted to give you the opportunity to pick and choose which units you want to talk about. Like we'll have a selective college unit that talks about, if you have students that are looking at selective colleges, that's a way different conversation than a state institution or community college in Mississippi. So if you're not familiar with that space and need guidance, those will be available. We're also partnering with the Mississippi Council for Economic Education in the preliminary stages of developing a master teacher course for this. It will be this summer. It will be 40 hours, so it'll be a week. And we'll be partnering with Teresa as well. That was mentioned earlier, who has a veteran experience in teaching this course to give participants a space to learn kind of how do you take the pacing guide and take the units and how do you implement that in a classroom, get some CEUs for it, which is great, but then also walk away with like a tangible outline of your course for the year. But if you don't want to commit a week in the summer, which I totally understand, there's a supplemental trainings that will be provided throughout the space of teaching this, whether that's a 45-minute CCR teacher chat or it's an intensive, you go kind of got all the spectrum, Heather, right? Like we're meeting everybody where they are.
So the master teacher of CCR it's developed along the concept of, most of you are familiar with the master teacher of economics format that the Mississippi Economic Council developed. And so Selena worked on this for us as well. They were able to use some COVID funding for this, which was great because it's more of a comprehensive training, whereas Get to College will really focus on and keep us up to date on units 3 and 4 because they are continuously changing. Selena's taken a comprehensive approach and we're looking at the entire class with that training this year. It'll be mid-July, probably when they're rolling it out. I promise as soon as Selena has her dates and registration available, we will be pushing that out to you guys. In the meantime, a quick fix, we posted a recording from a training this last summer, July 2020, on the MDE webpage under CCR. So I will put the link to the MDE webpage again in the chat, and it's located under resources, and it's kind of a brief. It has Get to College, it has some MDE people on it, it has Teresa on it talking about the Canvas class. So if you're in a fix and you need something right now, that's an easy way to start, is with that recorded training from last summer.
Hey, y'all, I'm sorry. My camera keeps slipping here. This is our first week back in the office, so I'm having a little technical difficulties with my camera, but I think I'm back now. So Christy, next question is, tell me how you went about planning your course and then the order that you deliver the course in.
Sure. So our primary goal was, of course, to implement the CCR curriculum, but our administration really wanted to focus on ACT prep and work keys prep as well. And our juniors have both now taken the ACT and the work keys test. So when I started the school year, I'm trying to think back all the way to August and September, but we were on what I would call it was red and gold days, or AB days. We only had half the students certain days of the week, and then Wednesday was virtual, and then we had half the students for the next part of the week. So I started the school year with units 1 and 2, and it took me a little bit longer to cover that material, of course, because the students were only there 2 days a week, and then trying to load things virtually for those students as well. But I primarily focused on learning styles and personality tests. We did a lot of goal writing, mission statements. We did an email etiquette lesson. And then in September and October, we kind of transitioned into unit 3 with colleges. Now, because I had primarily juniors, I used a next gen course, and I've got a link to that website. Let me give that to you. So I used next gen to kind of help with alternatives to colleges, because most everybody knows about, your 4-year colleges, your junior colleges, everybody kind of, let's see, let me go to everybody there, and okay, let me know if I did that right. So you kind of have an idea of your 4-year universities and your junior colleges. We did focus on that, but our counselors had done such a great job of putting together a PowerPoint that was kind of an interactive PowerPoint for virtual college tours. So we kind of had that to look at. Then we moved from, in October, we kind of started transitioning into the career aspects, and we focused a lot on the 16 career clusters. And that's something that Students took a survey. It's a resource that I've used before, and we kind of focused on what their top choice was. And then we did an intensive, it's probably 2 to 3 weeks worth of research on just that career choice for each student. And then we kind of transitioned from there. December and January, what we really focused on ACT prep. I do use ACT vocabulary throughout the year, so it's kind of an all year thing, but we really started practicing the sample test and everything in December and then in January. Then we moved to practicing for and getting ready for the work keys test. We used an online curriculum that our district purchased for us to use. It's through ACT. And if it's their online module, if you've ever used the ACT online module, it's similar to that. And then right now we are moving into personal finance. We covered, we'll probably stay on personal finance for the majority of May. I am going to be teaching a virtual unit during state testing. So I'm going to focus on the community service aspect for that virtual week. And then our digital literacy, we've done that throughout the year, just in different units. We kind of combine those things. I know that was a lot, but hopefully I got all the units covered.
That was a pretty big question, though. All right, Heather, tell us more, kind of piggybacking on that, how the CCR class can be delivered in the different school scheduling formats.
I'm trying to think about really how to expand on that. With that, with just knowing if it's A day, B day, those types of things, 4x4. I really think, Christy, I meant to ask you this. Are y'all block scheduling or?
No, we're a 7-period day. And I think we're down to like 48 minutes per class because of we're doing just social distancing and, giving everybody time to move throughout the building.
So let me ask you, do you find it difficult to cover, like within 48 minutes, you've really got to be moving and going as far as a teacher with that material?
You do. That's why I kind of spent a lot of time using the next gen lessons. And if you're not familiar with those, and I'll post, I'll post the link to that. I also posted a link to my Quizlet account that you're welcome to use for personal finance or ACT vocab. The next gen lessons really were set up well because we're a 1-to-1 school this year, all the students, which was something new for us. I've taught in a district that was 1-to-1 before. And then when I came here to Lafayette, the students didn't have devices until this year. So that was something new for them to learn how to use it, and trying to incorporate something that could be done with or without Wi-Fi at home. That was another challenge that we had. And the next gen lessons allowed you to start something in class and then kind of stop it, and they could go home and finish it. Or if they didn't have internet, they could finish it the next day in class. But it was a challenge to cover everything.
Yeah. So the lesson learned in that, and the reason why I asked is this isn't a class. And again, I was a high school teacher too, that teachers can just roll in and think that, and I hope Christy agrees with me, that you've got to do some planning behind it. It is such I call it the kitchen sink class. There's so many different topics that intertwine. It's almost like the ELA curriculum that you build upon. Each unit is not in isolation. You build upon it throughout the year. And so there's a lot of planning that needs to go into it ahead of time. I do understand that sometimes teachers are hired 2 days before school starts, and that a lot of that also happens. But it should be a class that the counselors work with you on. It's not a standalone class as far as it's just you by yourself. Look at this as a class that is a support factor. Some schools also have, I heard you say you taught personal finance before, which was great for you to go into this. You may work, if you continue the personal finance class, work in conjunction with the personal finance teacher. You'll see a lot of, I wouldn't call it necessarily overlap, but I would call it a lot of different support factors to help you get through the year. So Shannon, I don't know if it really necessarily answered your question, but what I want teachers to know is that this is something that they don't need to go out alone, and that they should be planning pretty extensively throughout the year. Would you say that was a fair assessment, Christy?
Yeah, and I'll just add that you may have a resource management teacher on your campus in the family consumer science field. Resource management covers very similar to the personal finance. And so even if you don't have a personal finance course, you may have resource management. And all of those kind of just intertwine. And you could even reach out to the economics teacher. They probably cover some of the similar items as well. And then ACT prep, a lot of classes or a lot of campuses have separate ACT prep courses. So you could reach out to that teacher as well.
All right. Kirsten, I'm going to throw this one over to you because you've been so very involved with College Countdown Mississippi. I know you're familiar with a couple of schools in our state who have been very successful in implementing college search and applications in their class, their CCR class. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you've seen there and how they've made it possible for all students who are looking at both college and career?
Sure. So like the title says, it's college and career, not just one or the other. And so as you probably know, when we're going to college, we define anything post-secondary as college. And so we've talked about in previous webinars about the attainment goal and the need for some sort of post-secondary for career. And one school that really highlighted how to implement this in the space of college and career was Mendenhall High School. And so Mendenhall High School, what they did is they took the application day from College Countdown and implemented in their college and career readiness course. But instead of just having it have the colleges help them with applications or other teachers just have applications, they put an emphasis on the research piece. So like Christy said, utilizing those virtual college tours. What Mendenhall High School did is they actually implemented it through their CCR course, which was all seniors to take both semesters of senior year. And they had the students research colleges and select 5 colleges that they then asked the students to reach out and email information to the admission staff. And most of them got information packets as well as virtual campus tours as a part of their researching piece. And then they had an application day for those students that had their list of the 5 schools that they wanted to apply to. After having done a lot of that fit match conversation research individual to that student, they educated around the space of making sure that your academic fits, making sure financially it's a fit, making sure that it geographically is a fit, and what that looks like for the student. For those students that were in the senior class that took the CCR that indicated that they had not planned to go to college and that they were going straight into career, they had an alternative assignment and where they had to research the career that they were looking to go into to see if there was any certifications that were needed and to have it, what they need to have on their resume in order to get straight into that career field. And actually, the counselor and teacher reported out from Mendenhall High School that many of those students actually found that they needed a certification in order to go straight into their career. And they actually applied to technical programs at the local community college. So they engaged in the application day as well from their own self-research. Again, college and career, but we see that those students are seeing, oh, wow, I didn't realize I wanted to go into diesel mechanic, that I actually need a certification in diesel mechanic in order to go do this. And so thinking about implementing that if you've got a student population that is questioning if post-secondary is for them, that's a really great approach, is to research while students are researching college, also researching those careers and what is necessary for them to step off the graduation stage and into what that next step is for them.
And Shannon, I wanted to say, Kirsten our definition of college, and this is all of ours, it's not just the 4-year institutions. It's like Kirsten said, it's whether it's a career and technical program, whether it's the military, a 2-year AA or straight to a 4-year institution. The point of this class is to help students make that next step after high school. And we want them to be successful in doing that. And so I think that's awesome how they handle the career aspect of that school.
Thanks, Kirsten. Christy, I'm going to go back to you. You successfully taught this course for a year. And I think you've already covered some of the online elements that you've used for the course. But do you plan to continue with the majority of those for the 2021 school year?
Yes. One thing that I may or may not continue with is this year, the National Guard purchased the Dave Ramsey online program for us. And so we use that online. I really like some of the next gen lessons for personal finance. I also have some local banks that send us some workbooks and how to come in, and they'll talk to us and stuff. So that's something that if we're allowed to have guest speakers next year, I definitely would have a local bank come in and speak on the personal finance section. I will say the National Guard came in, and that's a good recruiter for you to allow students an option other than a 4-year college. And we spent a lot of time looking at alternatives to 4-year colleges, just because, in the junior year, when they first got to me in August, some of the students had no idea. And so through all of the research and looking at different colleges and them having that time to research it, I've had students that were able to find a career path and a college for them, or maybe a work program that they wanted to go to. I will continue to teach CCR as long as my high school will have me. I love this curriculum, and I really like helping the students plan for life after high school.
Hey, Heather, can you tell us a little bit more about how this class is listed in the course coding?
It's listed just as College and Career Readiness in the MSIS course codes. It's one full Carnegie Unit. We do have separate course codes for the 1/4 Carnegie Unit. And so it's listed as 1/4 freshman year, 1/4 sophomore year, so that it will be clear on the student transcript what parts of the class that they have taken if they decide to do it in the 1/4 Carnegie Units.
Christy, are there a few things that you know now that you wish you had known going into teaching this course? And is there anything you will do majority different than what you've done this year already?
In a perfect world, I would love to take my students on a field trip. There's just something about walking on a college campus. And when I taught Teacher Academy, we would go visit different colleges and take tours if they had an on-site child development program or a preschool on site. And so I just feel like there's something to that. And I would love to be able to take my students on a field trip to tour our local community college. And we're in a college town. We have the University of Mississippi here. I would love to take them on a tour for that. And I also would love to teach this class to juniors in their spring semester of their junior year. And I would love to teach the seniors in their fall semester of their senior year. I just feel like there's some components that if I teach them to the juniors now, they may or may not be able to carry that with them next year. Now, we're not a huge campus, and I'm right on the main hallway. So students come by their senior year and I can usually catch them and say, hey, did you fill out your FAFSA? Hey, have you applied to college yet? But it would be more beneficial to the students as a whole if you could have them part of their senior year. Or maybe you could even do like a mini workshop if it's not a whole option for a semester class. Our counselors did a really good job. And I said this earlier about doing a virtual college tour. And they had a PowerPoint presentation, and they were able to come in and talk to us a little bit about the endorsement routes. And that kind of helped in the beginning of the year, because now students are building their schedules for their senior year, and they really know what they need to graduate. And they've kind of thought about it for a few months instead of just, here's one day, what class that you want to take, and then they have to make that choice, the next day. So it gave them time to think about it.
So I also want to, again, I told you that would be my dream, Christy, to have the juniors. You also have the summer. I know sometimes you don't think about it when you look at the community service aspect piece of college and career readiness, that builds in a little extra time. A lot of kids do a lot of things over the summer. And so they could do a portion of that. If you choose not to do something like whole school and they do individual, I meant to ask you how you tackled that. But the summer is a great opportunity if you taught it in that sequence with juniors and the seniors. How are y'all doing community service COVID?
So there was an online, we were, I guess it was, I don't even remember how many times we've been, fully virtual this year, but there was a span of, I want to say, a few weeks right around Thanksgiving to Christmas break that we were virtual. And so I found a couple of links to some online volunteer opportunities. And one was for students just to log in and read a children's book. So I would link them to our librarians who for the elementary schools and the lower education classes, and say, okay, look, here's an opportunity. You can read a Dr. Seuss book and you get credit for volunteering. But there was just a list online of all kinds of opportunities for online volunteering, things that you just would never think about, even partnering up to tutor. And then once we got back into school, I did have it's part of our ACT prep, because we know that it's important to read every day to prepare to read the ACT test and any state test. And so as part of that, I have 4 kids, so I have a good home library of children's books. And so I was able to bring those to class and let my juniors and seniors pick out one of their favorite children's books. And then I would go videotape them reading that, and we sent it to the lower elementary classes. And so it was just a fun way to incorporate reading with them.
That's great. I believe you talked a lot about next gen. I believe there's a next gen community service activity that some teachers have used to help supplement that unit as well.
Right. And we'll do that. We're going to be virtual again during state testing. And that's kind of my plan, is to use that lesson. I've kind of saved that to the side to talk about community service.
So you kind of touched on this a second ago, but tell us about working with your counselors or administrative team to make this course successful. You talked about the counselors coming in to talk to them about their schedules, but how you've worked with your counselors and your administrative team to make this course successful, because there tends to be a lot of overlap. Kind of tell us how y'all have worked together.
There really is a lot of overlap. And until I read your question that you sent, I really had not thought about having my administrators come in. And this is something that I used to do when I taught Teacher Academy. Our principal would come in and always share his career path story with my students about how he kind of came about to education. And I myself went alternate route. I have a bachelor's in accounting. And so I went alternate route for my teaching license. And so just for students to hear that from somebody else, our paths always sometimes can be straight or they can be windy. And our counselors really did a good job of creating those virtual college tours. So if you could start building a relationship with your school counselor, it would help you. They came in and talked about all the endorsement routes, because I don't have a senior, even though I teach some seniors. I just had not heard all of those endorsement routes in depth. And so for them to come in and kind of break it down for the students, and we did that earlier in the school year, it really helped them when they were scheduling recently. They were filling out schedules for next year. And then it kind of helped them think about, okay, in college, you're going to have to plan for your classes in college as well. And then, but I am going to talk with my principal when I get back to school and see if he would come in and talk. He's a great speaker. He has great stories, and the kids really like hearing him. So I'm going to pick his brain on what he could come and add to the class.
Coming from the administrator aspect, I do think that I highly encourage you, if you're not having those conversations with your principals, please do, because you're only as strong as a teacher in the classroom with your administrative support. And this class, again, is so new to everybody that we highly encourage all of the administrators to be very aware of what's in the curriculum. When we do have trainings, we would have breakout sessions where we would take the administrators in one section and teachers in one and counselors in another, simply because there are different questions on the administrative side. So please encourage them to be a part of this class as you implement the course during the year.
Okay, well, we're almost to the end of our questions. One of the questions we were going to ask was if they wanted more information, how do they get that? And I think we've been sharing all those links throughout there, but I know we'll let y'all give a little time to talk about that at the end finally. But one final question for you, Christy. What final piece of advice would you give to any future CCR teachers as they begin planning this course?
Well, when I approach this course, I just kind of think about what advice would I have liked to have heard when I was 17 or 18 years old, and being a mother of four, I know that sometimes it's hard for my children to receive information from their parent. And then the same thing with having taught juniors and seniors most of my education career. Sometimes it's easier if they hear it from someone else. So I didn't really have a good support system with researching colleges. I didn't have a good support system with preparing me for the ACT. And so those are kind of some things that I really took to heart, and making sure that my students are as prepared as they can be for life after high school, whatever that may be for them. Is it going to an Ivy League school? Is it going to your local community college? Is it going straight to the workforce? Whatever their plan is, I want that for them, and just to try to guide them on that path. And then, what is it going to look like when you have to balance your own checking account? What does it look like when you have to file your own taxes, or you have to fill out, a W-4? All those things that if we had a little life advice person that could travel with us through all these different experiences that we have, what would that look like? And that's just kind of how I looked at how to plan the course.
Great, thank you so much. I completely understand that after being in education for over 20 years, helping students go to college. I have my own high school senior this year, so navigating that. And then Heather, I was thinking about when you were talking about how some people are implementing, he'll be taking CCR next year, my youngest, as a 9th grader. So he came home and said, "Mom, do you know what CCR is?" I was like, just a little bit. So we are very grateful today to have you guys. Is there anything else that you want to add? Or Kirsten, have we had any questions pop up in the chat that we need to address?
We haven't had any questions yet, but I do want to add a piece of additional resource aside from what was shared from Heather and Christy, is that Get to College has developed a supplemental workbook for units 3 and 4, which is the college preparedness and financial aid. It looks like this, and it is free for anyone that wants it for your students. We offered it in print and then in interactive PDF this year. You can get as many as you want. Get to College is providing that. And it is meant to be a workbook that students work through, and it's personalized for them. So it has sample essays, it's got reflective pieces built in throughout it. So we will be updating this and offering it again for the 21-22 school year. So be on the lookout. We usually use the listserv through the Canvas course. So making sure you're on there, and then we try and reach out individually to schools. We know all schools will be offering CCR, and so we do it on a request basis to know where to send it and how many to send to your school. So just know that that is a free resource in addition to all of the great information that you've received today. We don't have any questions so far, but if anybody that's joining us today has any, feel free to go ahead and continue to drop those in the Q&A, and our panelists will certainly field any that you have.
Okay, well, thank y'all so much, Heather and Christy. We really appreciate your time today, and you've given very invaluable information. I know for folks who are about to begin the process of teaching this course. So we will email the recording for this webinar in the next couple of days to anyone who is registered, and we will also post it on our YouTube channels. We would also appreciate it if you would complete the short survey that will automatically pop up at the end of the meeting. Please fill that out and give us any feedback on today's webinar so that we can keep improving. So at the end of the spring semester, we are down to our final topic Tuesday, which will be held for the spring, that is, which will be held on Tuesday, May the 4th. And this upcoming webinar will be just in time to transition your students to college, because we're going to be talking about how student success offices throughout the state can support incoming freshman students. So again, having a high school senior going to college, I know myself, I'm interested in hearing that. So need all the support we can get when we're going to college, right? So finally, if you have participated in 5 webinars beginning through the fall or the spring, you will have the opportunity to apply for 0.5 CEUs. And if you have participated in 10 webinars this school year, you will have the opportunity to apply for 1 full CEU. So you can register for the last webinar on our Get to College website. They are listed under the Educator tab, and then choose Professional Development. While you are there registering, please check out all the other resources for you and your students listed under that Educator tab. So speaking of College and Career Readiness, we will be having our final College and Career Readiness teacher chat on April the 28th. So please join Kirsten and others for that final College and Career Readiness teacher chat on April 28th. And then the day before that, we will also be hosting a counselor coffee chat. And on that day, we are going to be hearing from Wes from ACT. So I know a lot of you will probably have questions for ACT on that day. And then also we'll be talking about college signing days, as many of you will be hosting those in the next coming weeks. And I was about to say months, just the next coming weeks. School's almost out, right? So those are our training opportunities coming up soon, and we hope you'll join us for both or either of those. And then finally, here's our contact information. We are, some of us, transitioning back into the office in a hybrid manner. So some of us will be here in the office and some of us home, but you can always reach us just as you've been able to for the last year by phone, email, text, you name it. We'll be here to help your students. So again, if you have any further questions, let us know. And thank you so much for spending today with us. And we hope that everyone has a great rest of your week. See you in a couple of weeks.